Welcome back to the In the Blood podcast, where we dive deep into the intricacies of life, relationships, and personal growth. I'm Jason Moore, and with me as always, my confidant, the Spider-Man to my Venom, AC Bergen-Fischer. Today we're tackling a subject that's often misunderstood, yet crucial to the foundation of any relationship: loyalty. Loyalty isn't gray, it is black and white. You're either loyal completely, or you're not loyal at all. This might sound stark, but it's a truth we need to embrace and understand. Loyalty can't be something you turn on and off like a light switch, only serving it when it benefits you. It has to be constant, unwavering commitment, whether it's in our friendships, our families, or our partnerships. In today's episode, we'll explore what true loyalty looks like, why it's so essential, and how to cultivate it in our lives. We'll also discuss the consequences of conditional loyalty and how it can undermine the trust and respect that form from the bedrock of any meaningful relationship. So grab a cup of coffee or your favorite beverage, sit back, and let's dive into the world of loyalty. A world where black and white isn't about rigidity, it's about clarity and integrity of our commitments. Take it away, AC.
Welcome, everybody. I wanted to start off today with a couple of announcements. First off, I wanted to thank everybody for their continued support of this project. The feedback we've been getting has been really, really interesting. I can't say overwhelmingly positive. People have had a mixture of opinions, but we welcome all forms of feedback because it lets us know, how we're affecting you, if we're affecting you, what's resonating. The other one is that I started a new project on a whim. Otherwise, I would have announced it much sooner, called Call Me Tony. Links and information to do with that show are available at acfischer.com. That is acfischer.com, as well as information regarding the current In the Blood podcast episode and any other appearances that I have made. So getting to your intro topic here, Jason, this is a subject I think you and I have pushed back and forth on a lot over the years, like a lot. Mm-hmm. Because you and I think as much as we agree on many, many things, we've got drastically different views on not just what loyalty is, but how much loyalty is actually essential for a relationship. I think like back even as far as 2017, when we were doing the Missionary Position podcast, we did have a little bit of a back and forth on this topic. Mm-hmm. And I'm interested in diving in. I don't know if you wanted to start off with me pushing back on what you said right off the top, or if you wanted to expand on the points that you started with.
I wanted to look at it as a broad spectrum. I do believe knowing you can count on somebody, the loyalty aspect is a fundamental need for any relationship. If you don't have that, how do you know you can count on somebody? There's no other proof, and at a whim they can bugger off on you. But it doesn't only pertain to relationships. It pertains to business. It pertains to the podcast. If you're not into doing it on a very regular basis, in my opinion, you're doomed to fail.
Okay, right off the top, you mentioned a couple of words that jumped out at me. You had said quite a bit about loyalty and the need for it, the benefits of it, etc. But you'd also mentioned another word which really, really stood out, which was commitment. And the first thing I thought was, okay, these are not both the same things. There is obviously a commitment aspect to loyalty, but I don't think that commitment and loyalty could be easily exchanged for each other.
No, one is part of the other. Sorry.
And I do agree with you in the sense that commitment is essential in any relationship. I don't agree with you as far as the loyalty goes. I think that if loyalty is as black and white as you suggested, then that necessarily would interfere with the successful application of boundaries.
How does it interfere with boundaries?
Well, my reasoning is that, and I'm going to go to the extreme only because I think it's easier to understand an example if we're using an extreme example.
Okay.
Not to try to talk to you like you're an idiot, but not everybody is as familiar with our thought patterns as you and I are with each other, right?
Right.
So if I'm going to go to the extreme of blind loyalty, right? Like I'm loyal to you no matter what comes up, no matter what the circumstances is, my loyalty to you is 100% unwavering. I think that would interfere with the application of boundaries because I'd then be prioritizing my loyalty to you over even my own well-being in certain situations. I think also that the foundation I'm building on really is that I do believe that all love actually is conditional. I think every relationship is conditional. There are certain things that are going to happen that can and will interfere with our ability to relate to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas we may have like still love for each other. We could go through a season where it's like, you know what, this guy's a prick. I can't have anything to do with him. Or he's not respecting my position, or, you know, just any number of things it, where if I'm trying to establish and assert a boundary and you've just trampled all over that boundary, I can't just throw my hands up and say, well, you know, he doesn't seem to care about my boundaries, but I'm loyal. So I guess I'm just going to have to suck it. That to me doesn't work.
Right. Loyalty and stupidity are not synonymous. You are absolutely correct. I've never equated boundary restriction with loyalty. In my opinion, part of being loyal is respecting somebody else's space. Yes, as you know how deep my loyalty runs, it doesn't take away from me doing for self. I cannot give you 100% if I'm not taking care of myself 100%. I cannot give to anybody or any situation if I'm not taking care of myself. And where possible, as you know, I will 100% be there for you. But since we're going to extremes here, if I have 2 broken legs and I'm in the hospital with a punctured lung, and you need me to do something for you, I'm not getting out of bed. I'm not putting self-harm because I'm loyal. If somebody that I'm loyal to can't understand that, hey, my legs are broken, I can't move right now. And remember, we're just dealing with extremes right now. Then what kind of respect is in the relationship? Loyalty isn't in place of respect. Loyalty is along with respect, with understanding.
Okay, it's possible that you and I are defining loyalty in different ways. So before we get too deep into like arguing it back and forth, I'm working off of the Oxford Dictionary definition of loyalty, which is the quality of being constant in your support of somebody or something.
Okay.
I don't know how I could be constant in my support of somebody while at the same time leaving myself room for boundaries, right? And again, I want to explain once again how I would personally define a boundary. A boundary is not a restriction I would place on another person. A boundary is more like a fence I build around myself. It's me expressing that certain words or actions or behaviors, these are things I can't allow myself to be exposed to. So while you're free to keep on doing these things, I also reserve the freedom to back away as needed.
With that example that you just made, that doesn't mean when you need me or when I need you, you're not going to be there. There's times when you're going to take time and need space. And part of me being loyal is giving you that space and saying, okay, you know what? Okay, right now that's what you need. Okay, I'm backing off. It's still accomplishing what you need. It may not be what most people see as loyalty. I'm by your side 100% of the time. That's not how I define loyalty. And I don't think that's how A lot of people define loyalty. That's why I put that line in there in the intro on purpose. A world where black and white isn't about rigidity, it's about the clarity and integrity of our commitments. So though I'm committed to you, doesn't mean I don't respect the space you need when you need it.
Well, see, this is why I was curious about how you individually were defining loyalty, because the definition of loyalty, as I understand it, does involve that element of rigidity that you're saying isn't there. And
Right.
I guess that's what I'm pushing back on, is I'm trying to, we're sort of like, we're mixing up, or at least I'm mixing up the way I would define a certain term with the way you're addressing that term, though clearly, based on what you're explaining, you're not defining loyalty in the same way that I am.
Fair enough. So as we've talked about in a podcast before, this reverts back to, yes, we've gone back and forth, but obviously neither of us have defined our terms properly to each other.
Okay. So, well, I'm glad we actually took a bit of a timeout to make sure that we're having the same conversation here. Because I mean, it's one of those things that I think you and I have covered a lot over the years, is just trying to communicate to people that, look, the best way to avoid conflict is to agree upon terminology right at the top of the conversation, no matter how clunky it feels.
Mm-hmm.
You're far less likely to speak past each other if two things happen. One is you're defining words the same way, or at least agreeing on the definitions the same way. And the other thing is that you're listening to understand, not listening to formulate a response.
Yep. Many things we've talked about. Lots and lots and lots and lots and lots. I think there's a lot that's taken for granted when people say loyalty. You've got different classifications of people using the terminology loyalty. You have people who are bikers in clubs, loyalty, ride or die, all that kind of stuff. That means you're going to be there for them no matter what. But if your bike's taken out and you're supposed to be there for somebody, they're going to understand that, you know what, right now I can't be there. I'm in the hospital with a broken ankle because I got hit on my bike. But if you go into a business meeting and you're signing contracts, that's when the quote unquote loyalty is rigid. You're bound by the letter of the law. So I guess it depends what classification of person you're also talking to determine where loyalty is coming from.
Okay, so I just Googleized loyalty versus commitment.
Googleized. Nice.
Yeah, Googleized, it's a verb.
It is now.
Okay, so the first result that came up, it said commitment is defined as making a promise or agreeing to do something for someone else, as well as the readiness to devote your energy and time to work. Loyalty may be defined as the adherence to a promise or faithfulness to someone.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's a huge amount of overlap there.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But based on what I'm hearing you describe, it really does seem like if we're working just strictly with the dictionary definitions that, as you've already alluded to, most people aren't cracking open the dictionary. We're going with the colloquial definitions,
right,
because that's just how normal people live. I just happen to be a stickler, right?
Yep.
But it sounds like the loyalty label that you're using is actually being assigned to something that would more resemble the definition of commitment. Because if I'm going to use you and me as an example, I can think of times where I would not be loyal to you because my commitment to you would kind of override that. It's like loyalty would be a case of look, I don't care whether you've done something wrong or not. I got your back 100% of the time. I don't really care. Which to me, I feel like that just sort of opens the door to almost like a need to enable you if the situation would call for it. Whereas when I indulge more so in commitment, then it's a case of look, I got your back 99% of the time. But if I see you doing something that's harmful to yourself, if I see you doing something that's self-destructive or just downright freaking stupid, I'm going to call you out on it, even if you don't like it, even if you want to say, like, look, I thought you were always going to support me. Like, well, I am supporting you by not enabling you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's part of the overlap. Because, so I'm going to use this as an example. We've committed to doing this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I can't be here, sometimes I can be. And sometimes you do solo ones. That's the commitment that we have. We've verbally made a commitment to do something. But in 3 weeks, if something dire happened and you need to talk to me, you know I'm going to be there. If there's any way possible for me to be there for you, I will be. Now, in this sense, it doesn't matter if you did something wrong or I agree with your ethics of the day, let's say. If you're having a mental breakdown and you need somebody to talk to, I will put that aside and talk to you. That's where my loyalty comes in over commitment.
Okay, well, that seems fair.
I think one's just a more extreme version of the other.
Okay.
I'm not going to forsake anything. Like if I physically can't be there, I will inform you, hang on, you know what, I can't be there. Or if I forgot my phone at home and I'm supposed to talk to you at 11 o'clock, that doesn't mean my commitment's wavered. I'm going to get back to you as soon as I can, because that's where my loyalty comes in.
Okay, so just to help me and to help the listeners understand, can you give me an example of something that you would consider someone being disloyal to you?
Okay. So you and I have been friends for 20 years. If I tell you something very important to me, and it is strictly for yours only, it doesn't matter how mad or how much you think I need help. If it's something I'm telling you in the moment that can't go anywhere else, not self-harm, not like hurting another person, but maybe just a space in my head that I need to talk about just to get it out there. Now you go into somebody else and telling them about that, that's breaking loyalty.
Okay.
If I'm going to self-harm and you go and tell somebody else, that's loyalty. That's looking out for my best interest.
It sounds like both the way you're defining loyalty and the way the dictionary is defining loyalty, I think are very, very restrictive, because based on the way the conversation is going so far, I would see loyalty as sort of like an umbrella term that covers other things like commitment, confidence, 51-year-old brain drawing a blank here, but
well, you're correct. I would agree with you.
But there would be multiple factors at work under that heading of loyalty, and I feel like when we get too stuck on the loyalty word, I mean, like we've talked about in a previous episode, I mean, when you say a word, unless you've described what you mean by that word, you've effectively communicated nothing, right? I think the example we used at the time was if you say, hey, this is Lynn, she's my girlfriend, I might define girlfriend differently than you do, right? I'm going to read a whole lot of different things into the situation that maybe you're intending to communicate. So unless you explain what girlfriend means to you, mm-hmm. I really don't, I've gained no new knowledge of your relationship.
Right.
I think the same is true with most words, and loyalty certainly being one of those. I mean, I'm sure that even whereas you and I are coming from two different places as far as like what this word means, any one of the people that are listening right now is probably thinking, well, you guys both have your heads up your butts. Like you're both totally wrong. That's not what loyalty is.
Uh-huh. But I also don't think loyalty is a blanket coverall statement, because loyalty is in my opinion, individualized. And as you tried to explain to me what loyalty is to you, and I've tried to explain what loyalty is to me, we obviously have reached a point where, for some reason, even now, still both of us are not totally understanding each other's. So until that's done, there can be no loyalty. No, that's not true. Just a misunderstanding of loyalty. If you join a bike club and they say, ride or die, loyalty, you know what loyal means in that circumstance. Or those in the world know what that means. But when you're dealing on an individual basis like this, given the other person time, which we have done, but obviously neither of us have been really good at it, but explaining what loyalty is to us, what we expect of the other person.
Okay, so I'm gonna read off some words to you.
Okay.
And I want you, if you're able to, without any forewarning, tell me whether or not you see these as components of loyalty. And if you see something as a component of loyalty, if you could also just make a quick mention of whether or not you think that this is a 100% of the time component of loyalty, or maybe just a sometimes.
Okay.
Okay, so the first word would be steadfastness.
Not necessarily, no.
Okay. Dedication.
Yes.
Like all the time or just part of the time?
So I do believe all the time.
Okay.
But that does not take away from the fact that I respect boundaries as well. Like, yes, my dedication is to you. I am dedicated to you because I've made that commitment. Whether or not you've made it back to me is irrelevant at this point. But that doesn't mean there isn't room for self there. I may be dedicated to you, but there's just going to be some times when I can't pick up the phone and you call me.
Okay, so would you say it's fair that by dedication we could say we're dedicated to the healthy function of the relationship?
Yes.
Okay.
100%.
Okay, this is a word I don't really like because it can have so many different contexts, but faithfulness.
Oh, I cannot answer that one because faithfulness to me is different than it is to you 100%.
Okay. Commitment.
Yes, there's a level of commitment to loyalty, yes.
Allegiance.
Yes. I don't necessarily think that means that, you always know I'm in your corner. I'm aligned to you. There is an allegiance there. Not giving way to, okay, I'm not going to be an idiot and blindly say, hey, you know what? Yeah, what you're doing is a good idea. You go ahead and jump off that bridge with those concrete shackles. Good idea. If that's what you want to do, go for it, man.
You might fly. You never know. Okay. Devotion.
Yes.
Okay. Attachment.
Oh, yes, there's definitely a level of attachment there.
How about affection?
Yes, but it doesn't necessarily mean like hugging, kissing, groping affection.
Just like I've got feelings of some sort of way towards you.
Yep.
Okay. I think I already know the answer to this next one, but reliability.
Oh, 100%. Yes. Now, 100% doesn't mean unwavering. Like there may be times when, yeah, you're a very reliable person, AC. But I do also understand that there's sometimes when you just can't do what you said you were going to do, and I got to make allowances for that.
Okay, this next one, I already suspect, just based on this last answer that you gave, that this is going to be a little bit of a gray area. But being constant.
Yeah, that's very gray. You and I may go 3 months without talking. Well, that normally doesn't happen, but we may go 3 months without talking. But I believe you're still, like, if I called you up the next day and said, hey, here's the issue, I need to talk, you'd be there. So, yeah.
Yeah, I put a footnote on that one myself too, saying that, like, based on what you're saying, I know you're constant, not in the sense that you're going to answer the phone or reply to a text 100% of the time, but I know what to expect from you for the most part.
Right.
Like
Yes.
there's no like surprises usually.
We're both very upfront about that.
Okay, and then the last one, being as good as your word.
Um, I think being that good is your word.
Okay, so would there be any other words that you might want to add that would like fall underneath this? I hate to say umbrella over and over again, but underneath this umbrella of loyalty.
Respect, trust, understanding, reliability, integrity.
Yeah, I see. I think integrity. That's probably like a much better way to than saying being as good as your word, because integrity I think goes way beyond that.
Right. I agree.
Okay, now I feel like we're getting somewhere. So I've just been like making some notes here as we've been talking. So would it be fair to say that if we were going to break down loyalty, loyalty would be a combination of dedication, commitment, allegiance, devotion, attachment, affection, reliability, being constant, respect, trust, understanding, and integrity?
100%. Yeah.
Okay. So being that the topic of loyalty is something that I think you spend a lot more time thinking about or have spent a lot more time thinking about than I have. Would you like to expand a little bit on what you were saying right at the beginning about like how you think that these are that loyalty is an essential component of any relationship?
First off, I'm going to qualify that with any integral relationship. I see people at the coffee shop, let's say, all the time, and I have a hello relationship with them. I don't think loyalty fits in that type of relationship. When I have a relationship with somebody that's built on respect, trust, integrity, and is a wrong word, but long-term relationship, no, that's not correct.
Just something with some substance to it, not something super, super casual.
Correct. There will be loyalty there, but it will be a different. Every relationship has a different type of loyalty.
Okay.
I believe it's a basis to any relationship because of every word you just said. Has to be in it in order to have a properly trusting, committed relationship. Per relationship, it varies, I believe. Some people are going to be a lot more reliable, as in, okay, it's a lot more easy for me to go out for coffee with Bill than it is with you. It doesn't mean you're not there for me. It just means you and I aren't going to be doing coffee until you travel 3,000 miles or I travel 3,000 miles or kilometers.
Fair enough.
Does that answer your question? Or
yeah, no, that really does. Because I mean, it sounds like whereas loyalty will draw from that whole list of things that we agreed upon, the amount of each of these components is going to vary one substantial relationship to the other. I mean, some might be much heavier on, say, reliability. Others might be, I don't know, maybe a little bit more heavy emphasis on consistency.
Right.
I guess it all depends on the needs of. Well, I guess my needs are going to determine which kind of demands I put on which certain individuals too. I mean, just because if I understand certain functions of your personality, and if I understand and respect your comfort level, there's certain things that whereas I know you would really, really put yourself out there to try to satisfy the demands I put on you, I may be better off going and putting these demands on somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like I know that I can go to you for most things, and I think that you understand that you can come to me for most things too. But I mean, at the same time, like there's certain stuff, maybe like you're too close to the situation sometimes in order to give me what I need. Maybe I need a more casual view of things from somebody who isn't biased, who maybe somebody who's got less loyalty even. I may need their perspective because that smaller amount of loyalty may allow them a greater amount of objectivity.
Yeah, you have to go outside our circle in order to get some kind of information. Yes, I would agree with that.
So whereas I wouldn't necessarily go to somebody that I know to be completely disloyal, I don't always need maximum loyalty.
Yeah, fair enough. Yep.
Okay, so did you want to keep the topic of loyalty like kind of on relationships, interpersonal stuff?
No, just wherever it happens to go.
Because again, I was thinking if we were going to shift the loyalty to something more inanimate, like if we were going to talk about brand loyalty, not so much because I want to like argue about whether, we want Android or iPhone, PC versus Mac or anything like that, but
right.
Just using the inanimate as sort of an extreme example that might have some overlap if we're going to look at our interpersonal stuff, maybe looking at something where there is no real, like nothing really invested on a personal level. It might help us to sort of gain some perspective on maybe how loyalty may be benefiting us or
hurting us.
Yeah.
That'll open up a lot of doors. I totally agree with that. Yeah, but let's do it.
Okay, so it's like one of these things, like again, you and I don't think there's many arguments we haven't had at some point over the last 20 something odd years.
Yeah.
We spent a lot of time together. We worked a lot of shifts together. And at one point I remember like you had really gotten into your well, just isolated to one particular product, not just a brand name, but just one product in particular. You really, really liked your Milwaukee drill, your Milwaukee cordless drill.
That's not past tense.
And I really, really liked, because at the same, we had both bought new tools at the same time ish, right? You got the Milwaukee, I got the Bosch.
Right.
And there was definitely benefits to both brands. There was definitely areas where they were equally amazing. And there was areas where one sucked or the other one sucked, depending on a specific application, right? I think we both dug in a little bit harder than we needed to at the time because we were both a little bit more hot-headed at the time too. But I mean, this is something with like the brand loyalty I've seen happen a lot over the years, is like people doing what we had done, where it's like, well, I'm not really willing to consider this other option because I like what I like.
Right.
And I'm not really interested in hearing too much about the other. Like I will graciously acknowledge for the sake of politeness that, yeah, what you're saying is true, but it's going to have no impact on my decision making.
Yeah, and I think we still do that.
But I mean, walking it back to like dealing with people, I think that sometimes we are at risk of doing that too. Like if we have too much loyalty towards a certain person, and not that loyalty necessarily is the issue, but maybe the misplacement of it is. Like if I give loyalty to somebody who like just 100% does not deserve it, I think that's part of why I'm a little bit like squeamish too about like saying that loyalty is necessary. Like I think that anything that can't be called into question or anything that we don't call into question becomes a little bit dangerous. We got to be willing to say, okay, like, is it reasonable to maybe consider that we might want to turn this off?
Right. Okay. So I don't, now, if I'm wrong, absolutely correct me, but I don't think I ever said loyalty cannot be turned off.
No, I think right off the top, you made it clear that, what was the word you used? It wasn't meant to be like rigid.
Right. It's about clarity and integrity. So if I meet somebody and we're on a good wave, I do give a level of loyalty right there and then, even first time out. Just like I give a certain level of trust. And if inside of, let's say, 2 years, just for a number, could be 3 months, but I'm just going to use 2 years as an example, we haven't had a conversation about loyalty, either one happens or there's a limit put to that relationship on my side. Even when we first met each other, there was absolutely no discussion about loyalty because we didn't even like each other. But once we actually got over that hurdle and thought, you know what, like, this person's in my life, we don't really have a choice anymore. Happenstance keeps throwing them into our life, so we're kind of there. We did have a conversation about what we expected from each other, and over time had multiple conversations growing and growing and growing from that initial one, setting our boundaries and telling each other what we like and what we don't like and what we expect out of each other, what we don't expect out of each other, and so on and so forth. So I've been friends with you for well over 20 years. And over that 20 years, you've proven to me that there is a certain amount of commitment that I know I can get from you no matter what. You've also proved to me that there are going to be some times when you're just a bitch.
Well, it's true.
And I know that. So my loyalty, though to you is 100%, it's built around that bitch fest, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Well, I mean, that all draws back to like me being constant, right? Like that was predictable, really.
Right. The only thing about you that isn't predictable is when and if you're going to have a bitch fest. Because sometimes something external from me affects you and I don't even know it, and it becomes a bitch fest. Sometimes it's me doing something and I didn't even know it. So,
well, I mean, you don't know what I'm going to do next because I don't know what I'm going to do next.
Yeah. Even if I were a mind reader, I wouldn't know what you're going to do next because you don't know.
Yeah.
But to somebody who I've only been friends with for a year, if they ask me to do something, if you asked me to watch your son for 3 weeks and I had the availability to do it, that wouldn't be a question. It would be a matter of when. If somebody I've only known for a year that I don't totally know I can trust and I haven't really built that kind of rapport with wants me to watch their kid for a week, odds are I'm not going to do it.
Right.
Because the level of loyalty is not built. I also believe loyalty is built with familiarity and time. I don't think it's just, okay, we're friends, here's my loyalty.
Yeah, I think you got to start somewhere. I mean, it's not like you go from like, I've got no loyalty to, okay, you put in your time, now I'm loyal. It sneaks up on you, right? Just like anything else in a relationship.
Just like trust.
Yeah.
And you build it over, proving yourself over time.
Okay, so as we wrap things up here, I just wanted to say that, you know, like I came into this expecting it to be kind of a debate between you and I, because I mean, we've had so many debates about the value of loyalty in a relationship, but I think really what's happened instead of a debate is like there's been a little bit of a push back and forth, but the result of that sort of like back and forth has been that we've gained a better understanding of each other and the way that we define loyalty. And I think we could both agree that, yeah, I mean, whereas like right off the top, when you were giving your little introduction to the topic, I was sitting here biting my tongue thinking, nope. But now as I sit here at the end of the conversation, looking back at the beginning, I think, you know what? Understanding that where you're coming from, yeah, I think I'm on board with you. If anybody has got differing thoughts, or if they'd like to expand on anything we've talked about, or even if you'd like to come on the show and have a conversation with Jason and I, feel free to send us an email, inthebloodpod@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. Not just about today's conversation, but about any other conversation we've had, both on this podcast or any other one. Also, if you're interested in booking a coaching session with Jason and/or I, you can do so again by reaching out to the same email. I want to thank you so very, very much for joining us once again. And until next time, my friends, much love.